Hi, this is Naroki5. I am going to be doing this until I die or I find something better to do. So please help me achieve this personal and, I think, noble objective by contributing to my Patreon or Subscribe Star. Link is down below. Every little bit helps. Thank you very much. Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to the Red Pill Nation Hangout. Um, Episode number 401. Yeah, we're into the 400s now. That tells, like I said, yeah, there's gonna be a few. There might be some changes upcoming here because of some stuff I talked about on 400. But yeah, we're going to stick with the usual format that I've been doing, like literally since episode 6, because it works. At least for me, it works. So I am your host, Naroki5. With me tonight are a usual guy, Roger Hanson, and somebody completely new that I've barely spoken to before at all. But yeah, I'm very curious to hear his takes on some stuff, Mark Edworthy. But we'll start with somebody who's already been on and we're already familiar with. So Roger, introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Roger Hanson. Usually I'm on here, Skype, and I'm also on Discord. I stream or on Rumble, Odyssey, and YouTube, as well as X. And I know there's another one out there, but I keep forgetting which one it is. But anyhow, you can find me at Roger Hanson or Live with Roger Hanson. I also do other things as well, like the Wonderful World of Weirdness and all these other different channels. But that's it.
And with us tonight for the very first time, so we're breaking the Red Pill Nation virgin bubble for Mark here. Mark Edworthy.
Hi. Yeah, I'm a Brit. Mainly, I'm mainly on Minds.com, so Minds.com Medworthy, and my sort of background's in sort of IT support and various related aspects.
Okay, and yeah, I've seen. I've not over. I think I say I only started listening. I don't think listened. I can't even remember what the name of it was. But I am quite anxious to listen to your get your feedback on stuff. So for those of you who don't know, I am in order of total number of subs involved: BitChute, MGTOW TV, Odyssey, Rumble, Brighteon, and of course YouTube, which hopefully YouTube will just continue to die the slow, painful death that it deserves. I am also at Minds, Gab, MeWe, Facebook, and Getter at this point, and TLB Talks, but I haven't been on TLB Talks for a while. Site news. Again, right? Couple of things. As if you listen to 400, and not very many of you have, but if you listen to 400, yeah, I decided to step out and tell on myself and put myself on the spot here. The aim of this particular show, and the aim for me, is to get to the point where I am doing this exclude. Might be not necessarily the Red Pill Nation hangout, but basically doing live streaming and video content exclusively as a form of as a living. I've had certain stuff happen at work over the last week or so that reminded me about how vulnerable a position I am in regards to employers. And while the job is still safe at this point, yeah, no, outside circumstances made the first week at on site this week on this 2-week run very, very stressful. So yeah, going to take that as a lesson, and I'm going to start making strides to get myself to the point where I'm monetized enough that I can actually make a living doing this. I keep saying that I'm going to join Spotify and iTunes or whatever, and I will eventually get around to that. But that's a project for the future. You will also likely start hearing me do a lot more solo episodes. Rearson Rearson just kind of lost his. He may get it back, but he temporarily lost his passion for coming on this show every single week for the last 7 years. So yeah, he's stepping away. So you might start seeing me do some solo episodes. I may also start reducing the number of, like, say, cutting it down to like 3 or 4 topics and doing shows like twice a week or something like that, as opposed to once a week. That way, I get more content, shorter content, and maybe people can evolve. If you two guys have any insight on this, I'm all ears. As for the topics tonight, we're gonna start out with a. Well, Roger lives in the U.S., so he might know. He probably is familiar with this kid, given some of the shenanigans that happened in the 2020 presidential election. But here up in Canada, specifically in Alberta, of all places, the city of Calgary tried to sneak in the landed immigrant voting at the municipal level. Yeah, and it came a lot closer to passing than you might realize. Topic number 2, corporate section. Robbie Starbuck exposes yet another woke company, Toyota, and B, Coca-Cola caves on its decision to include Christians in its custom can promotion. Yeah, that one was, I threw that one just as a point of interest. Topic number 3, Infowars is officially getting shut down. Topic number 4, Pavel Durov, aka of Telegram, caves into authorities and ends anonymity on Telegram. Topic number 5, former New York City Mayor Eric Adams indicted on charges. And of course, P. Diddy, who I think is potentially on his way to becoming Epstein Part 2. Without, hopefully this time without the suicide, but you never can tell. But with that, I will get into the actual topics themselves. The first one, of course, being the city of Calgary. Now, both I don't know if either of you two, how much you two know about Canada, but Alberta is a province. I know Roger knows about it. Alberta is a province in Canada, and Alberta is also to quote it quite bluntly, it's known as the Texas of Canada. It's got its politics and culture are very, very similar to what the politics are in Texas culturally. I've heard that specifically from people who've lived in both places, because both places have they're both oil and gas heavy. They both tend to lean towards the conservative side, but they're not like Bible thumping conservative places for the most part, except for a few enclaves. Canada has an even bigger immigration problem in terms of the number of immigrants coming in than not in terms of sheer numbers, but definitely in terms of percentages of the population. Something that got released on Twitter showed the 10 cities with the largest percentage of people not born in the country living there. 5 of the 6 were from Canada, and I believe 8 of 10 were from Canada. So if you think the United States has got a fairly significant immigration issue, by the way, that just includes immigrants. That does not include students. That does not include, although Canada doesn't have a illegal situation going on nearly as bad as they have in the U.S. But yeah, it's immigrant situation is in a way even worse than the one that the United States has, although it's definitely being driven by the government a lot more up here. And I can basically say the company specifically that I work for is infamous for hiring immigrants. And I'm not saying that all immigrants are bad, but when you come from another country and you get to a Western or any country at all, a job is something that you need to get a hold of immediately. And working remote sites in Canada pays very well. So that's something that happens here. So as we all know, as the three of us probably know, the cities are basically havens for this type of wokeism. Now, the mayor of Edmonton, Amarjeet Sohi, is a little bit more subtle about how he does things, but Yeri Gondek, the mayor of Calgary, has done stuff like protect groomers, allow potential pedophiles access to kids, and passing laws to legally prevent protests from taking place. But this one was particularly bad, I think, mostly because it would potentially have opened the door to allow landed immigrants to vote in the end, because there is an election coming up in Canada in the next 12 months. The opposition parties, particularly the Bloc Québécois and the Conservatives, are pushing very hard on Trudeau, who's had a minority government this whole time, by the way, that if he doesn't start doing things their way, that they're going to basically team up with the Conservatives and vote him out of power. So it's gone from being a de facto alliance to, we're gonna support you on a case-by-case basis. And I think a lot of that, in particular with the New Democrat Party, has a lot to do with the fact that Jagmeet Singh is, what is it, October? Yeah, November, December. Yeah, 4 months away from getting his MP pension, which is, for Canada, is fairly luxurious. So what she tried to do, and it did pass at the municipal level, is that basically it was a decision to allow landed immigrants to vote in municipal elections. They took this to the provincial. There's a organization which deals with municipalities all over the province of Alberta, and they tried to push this on all of the municipalities in Alberta, and it got voted down, but it got voted down only something like 56 to 44 or something like that in terms of percentages. So it came a lot closer to happening than a lot of people maybe realized. And what this would have done is that it would have given potentially the Liberals and the NDP a potential legal basis to allow landed immigrants the right to vote in the next federal election. Now, that doesn't necessarily say that this won't happen in another province, but it was a little that fact that it happened here in Alberta was a little bit shocking. It's probably, they might potentially try this elsewhere. They're definitely going to be trying versions of this in the US. But not surprised that the mayor of Calgary would do something like this, but very scary. And given what Trudeau has been doing lately, especially around Bill C-63, this is not very surprising, especially coming out of Yeri Gondek. And with that, who wants to go second?
Okay. Funnily enough, just yesterday I was first time I've done this, but I was watching Wednesdays. I presume it was Canada's Prime Minister's question time.
Oh, question period.
Um,
Yeah, question
yeah.
period. Yeah.
And I was quite impressed by people like Pia and the Sikh, that is the Conservative leader in your country.
I know though. I know his face, but I can't remember his name. I know the one you're talking about. Yeah.
But yeah, that was quite interesting. But going back to the main point, this is comes straight out of the sort of socialist Labour liberal playbook. The idea is to bring in more immigrants, and then they would be so grateful for you to come, well, for them to be coming into the country, they would automatically vote for Labour or Liberals. At least that's the concept. That makes sense. Arguably, it could backfire. I mean, in the UK, we've seen a situation where we've seen, let's say, a certain demographic, a lot of an increase in a certain demographic, and then when Labour members have spoke out in favour of, let's say, Israel in within the current war, those they've had backlashes by that certain demographic.
No, what Naroki usually does is this is your entire time to just speak.
Okay.
Go for it.
Yeah, you're not under any pressure to stop. You take as just yeah. Well, I mean, certain places.
I think I've the points I've made are sufficient, relevant. If you've got any feedback on that sort of.
Well, I mean, I've heard about the situation going on in Britain, especially that riot that took. Where was that? Where did that riot take place there recently? The one where the police.
Which one?
Oh, the one involving the not the school. Jesus, yeah. There's a lot of them.
The hotel. The hotel.
Yeah, the hotel. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way the government literally kept the law offices open for the entire night so that they could arrest counter protesters. Two-tier policing.
Indeed, releasing known criminals earlier, or releasing convicted criminals earlier than they are meant to. In the majority of cases, these are minor criminal activities, but yeah, releasing criminals and then filling up the prisons with, dare I say, political prisoners.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, Roger, are you ready?
Yeah, I guess I am. I was hoping that maybe Mark could just kind of talk for not long enough to where I could just be passed on this subject, because Mark already knows, and you kind of know too, Naroki, where I don't really, I really don't follow the whole immigration shit. You know what I mean? Because here in the United States, I actually took time to research what started the whole immigration laws and everything here in the United States, and it's pretty murky and pretty negative for the whole purpose behind it. Ellis Island is the first federal place that allowed immigrants to come in after the immigration laws for federal government came into play, and they focused more on people coming from Europe than any of the other areas. And then they segregated and they said that freaking people from this country couldn't come or people from this country couldn't come. And they started saying it was because these countries had more diseases and shit. And they just, apparently went along with like Africa and the Middle East and all these countries that freaking weren't morally up to the Christian ideas here that they had here in the United States. Before it was federal, immigration was dealt with by the states. You know what I mean? And this goes back to what I was talking about, where people don't want to take responsibility for their own actions. They want to hand it over to the federal government and let them make decisions for them. The one thing about the federal government that I know is they want, it's a power struggle between individual rights and government. Okay, if you give your rights away to the government, you have less power, and if you freaking take back that power, then the government has less power. So it's a battle between those two forces here in the United States. And I see the conservative parties in a lot of countries these days actually being mistaken for conservative parties, when in reality they're actually national socialists. You know what I mean? Because national socialists have a set agenda that is rotated around their own form of socialism. You know what I mean? Now, everybody has this idea that when you say socialism, they're a whole big group of people with freaking hands together and singing Kumbaya and all that shit, and they're not. You know what I mean? There's people who there's socialist parties that are actually fighting against one another. You know what I mean? That don't agree with each other, and that's what's going on here. You have two socialist powers that are fighting, and it seems to me that there's this common denominator going on in England. It's going on in Canada. It's going on here in the United States and in Australia and New Zealand. And it has to do with this overwhelming population freaking being pretty much put into our countries. And then you have this opposing force that's coming up with stuff that has to do with voting fraud, and it has to do with immigration and, things of that nature. And I see it in all of these countries. It's not just here in the United States, and it's not just in Canada. It's everywhere, and it's getting more rampant, and it's popping up more, and that's what I've been seeing about it. I really try to stay away from a lot of this because it goes down a really, really bad path. Like you hear people constantly just bad mouthing one another on the internet over this kind of shit, and I try to stay away from it. And when I do talk about it, I try to talk rational. I don't want to get caught up in any controversy or anything. These are just things that I learned whenever I actually did the research and started finding out the history of all this stuff. And, that's basically the best I can come up with it. Other than the fact that I really think that you guys up in Canada need to get rid of Heartland. That's a horrible freaking TV show.
I've never seen it, and I'm happy to say that I've never seen it.
Good.
Just like I'm happy to say that I never watched The Acolyte.
Oh, God.
Sorry, Roger. I just want to come back on a few things you've mentioned. I heard rumors, YouTube commentators, certain YouTube commentators, and I've not done the research into this, talking about issues like TB and HIV becoming an increasing dramatically in the UK due to the immigration issue. Again, I've not done the research on this, so take it with a pinch of salt. when you talk about conservatives and, or let's say right-wing parties and National Socialism, granted, this can occur in certain countries, but you've got to be extremely careful because anything right of Marx these days, as far as certain mainstream media are claimed to be the far right, quote unquote. And there's an argument to be made that certain conservative related parties, such as the UK's previous conservative government, was more left-wing in nature than they were conservative.
Okay. The Conservative Party, I want to speak specifically about the Kenny. Roger can cover the Republicans, and we don't want to spend too long on this topic. I will also throw in one more thing before we start out. We can also add South Africa to that list of countries. South Africa is also experiencing a major immigrant problem. I've talked to some people in South Africa. They can't play the race card down there because these are people from Nigeria and whatever coming in. So it's like, I mean, the only way you can really tell the Nigerians from the native South Africans is culturally, and not, well, they look a little bit different, but they're not like the native South Africans tend to be somewhat lighter skinned than people from Nigeria and Central Africa tend to be. But South Africa is also experiencing this problem as well. Now, getting back to your point, I will talk about the Conservative Party in Canada. 2 elections ago, there was the head of the Conservative Party at the time was Andrew Scheer, and in the 2019 election, what happened was that Andrew Scheer, like, for all intents and purposes, Trudeau pretty much handed Andrew Scheer the election, and Andrew Scheer should have won walking away. But for whatever reason, Andrew Scheer never capitalized on any of the mistakes that Justin Trudeau made. Now, I didn't find out until later that both him and Jagmeet Singh, who's the head of the New Democrat Party, and Justin Trudeau were all young leaders, which explained why Andrew Scheer the election, for all intents and purposes, had already been decided. So, yeah, to that point, yeah, the next election, there was a guy by the name of Aaron O'Toole. Now, he wasn't a young Soros guy, but he was pretty much compromised at one point. Because Trudeau had the last election in Canada, the Conservatives were actually out ahead. And then what literally happened is Aaron O'Toole suddenly just started talking really hard about enforcing vaccinations and believing in forced vaccinations and all that sort of stuff. Basically, he went back on some of the stuff that he said before, and it took away just enough support away from him that he lost the election, and the timing of that was very curious, and he was pretty much forced to step down. And again, this is a case of the Conservative Party of Canada, like, not being able or not willing to push on any mistakes that Trudeau makes. During the convoy, when it started and the truckers started arriving in Ottawa, Trudeau just, like, took off like a craven coward, right? So Trudeau literally handed over to Aaron O'Toole a win on a silver platter, and the guy still waffled. Like he would not take advantage of it, and he was basically forced to step down. Now we have a guy, Pierre Poilievre, who's not Soros connected. He says all the right things, but I'm going to have to wait until the election is called, because pretty much at this point, Poilievre is the prime minister in waiting. Now, is he going to undo some of the stuff that Trudeau did? He better, because it cannot be politics as usual in Canada. I will allow Roger to comment about the Republicans, or we will move on to the next section here. So, Roger, if you have anything to say.
Yeah, with here in the United States, when it comes to conservatism and the Republicans, don't use us as an example for conservatives, because things are going on within the conservative groups or the Republican Party, for one, that is really, really freaking crazy. And you can't even put a name on it. You know what I mean? Like Donald Trump. Donald Trump is something, but he's not a freaking conservative Republican. I can't tell you exactly what he is, but he is not a conservative Republican, you know. And a lot of the changes that are happening in the Conservative Party is really, really unique, because it seems like the poor people who are conservatives are actually taking back their political party. I mean, in a weird, like, right fringe group kind of way, you know what I mean? It's really strange. It reminds me of like the Tea Party on freaking crack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just like I said, when it comes to conservatism in the United States right now, I couldn't really tell you exactly how what my thoughts are on that. It's strange. That's all.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we'll move on to the, unless Mark has something quick to say, and then we'll move on to the topic two. Okay.
Please continue.
All right. So the next topic. Oh, this one is really interesting.
All right, y'all, it's that time again. It is time to expose Toyota. They have gone totally woke. You are not going to believe what is under the hood of this story, so strap in, because it is insane. If you're even slightly moderate, you are going to be questioning if you should ever give this company a dime in the future. Before we start, I want you all to keep in mind that Toyota also is massive in Japan, a country that I don't think is going to take kindly to a lot of the things we're about to point out. Also, here in America, they depend on families buying their vehicles. Again, I don't think families are going to be big fans of what I'm about to expose. Let's start with this post on Instagram from drag queen Miss Mary Lou Pearl. Men out there with a Toyota truck, you are not ready for this. This drag queen not only says that Toyota gave them this truck for this ad that I'm about to play you, but they also sponsored a drag program at Brave Trails. What is Brave Trails, you might ask? I'll tell you after you see this ad.
What, darling? Not what you were expecting?
I just want to say, if you have a Toyota Tundra, I am sorry. I'm just sorry. But now you guys need to find out what Brave Trails is. Brave Trails is a summer camp that invites children who identify as LGBTQ+, and Toyota was funding a drag program there. And we've got video. And look, whether you agree with this stuff or not, I think everybody should be able to agree that people who are viscerally opposed to it for faith reasons or whatever reason they may have should not feel like when they spend their money at a major corporation, it's going to be used to fund things like this that they are completely opposed to. The other side would hate it if it was something that they were opposed to. This should be a no-brainer for corporations. This is not okay. And just to be clear, I'm willing to bet that Toyota thought we would never find out about this, mainly because there's not real influence here. 784 likes is a weird thing to jeopardize a massive cross-section of your customer base for. But Toyota did it because they thought we wouldn't find out. but we did. Oh, and we're not even close to done here. There is much, much more. And by the way, there are photos and videos from that camp that I find much more disturbing, but I'm not putting them up here for the sake of the children who are in it, but anybody can go look at their website or their Instagram page and see this camp is not one that we would say your average person would think is a good idea. Now let's talk about this photo. Toyota is bragging here about taking part in the Dallas Pride event, okay? Dallas Pride, they were a big sponsor, and I've got to show you some clips. This first clip is really long because Toyota brought a comical amount of cars, so we're going to try to go through it as fast as we can, but the second clip from the announcers is something you need to hear.
Brand Lexus as well. We know Toyota moved here some years back, bringing some 4,000 people from the West Coast, employing people here. They are an amazing corporate citizen in so many ways, including supporting the LGBTQ community, not just in who they employ, but who they reach and how they celebrate.
Toyota in the house along with their crew, and we were just talking about some of the different groups that get involved, and some of these just major corporations who have stood up and said, you know what, not only do we support this parade, and I don't know what the word approve of this parade, we're going to be here and so maybe be an ally, or just be connected. And so companies like Toyota are showing up and really standing out here.
This one with the trans flag on it is absolutely beautiful, and I love that Toyota told us that they believe life is best lived in full color. That's what they brought their 9 fleets of Toyota and Lexus cars, trucks, and FUZs out today.
Yes, 9 fleets. Now listen to what the announcers say about what business owners are saying about customers who maybe don't want to take part in this, maybe don't want their money going to this agenda that sexualizes kids by bringing them to these events where they're exposed to sexual behavior. More on that in a minute.
Well, and let's just say, they may deal, these companies who are here today, they may deal with fallout. They may deal with people who decide based on their participation here that they don't want to do business with them. And the business owners I've talked to and presented that to them as a possibility say, well, maybe those aren't people we want to do business with. I mean, frankly, if we're going to talk about it, that's part of their commitment to this.
Do you hear that? So maybe they don't want to do business with you.
Some parents are smart. They've got the wagon with the kids.
This is a family fun day, like you just said, with the kids in the wagon.
Let's see just how family-friendly and child-friendly the Dallas Pride event was. These are some of the things kids were watching at Dallas Pride as their parents strolled them around. Let's take a closer look at this guy specifically. So does this look appropriate to you? Is this something that we should be exposing children to? The answer is very clearly no, this is not appropriate for kids, but Toyota sponsored an event where guys like this walked around with all that hanging out in front of children. I don't think that's appropriate. I think that major corporations should probably not sponsor events like this. I don't want to spend my money at companies who are going to turn around and use that money to fund stuff like this being exposed to kids. And I'm willing to take a big bet here that most families in America and most folks in Japan feel the same way I do. It's not about hate. These people are adults. They can do what they want in their personal time. But I do hate that they are sexualizing themselves in front of children. I do hate that children are being put in a position where they are seeing stuff like this, and major corporations are funding the events where it's happening. As you can see on their website, this stuff is all intrinsically linked with their, quote, DE&I journey. And where are a lot of these woke policies in their, quote, DE&I journey coming from? Well, look no further than the Human Rights Campaign, one of the most Orwellian named organizations I can think of, because honestly, I don't see anything they do that has to do with human rights. All they are basically is an activist group that hates the right. And their organization on a regular basis is framing Republicans as some existential threat to humanity. Just look at their social media accounts and you will see this is an activist organization for the far left, not a human rights group that's fighting for the human rights of everybody. Nothing like that, okay? This group has a scoring system called the CEI system. The Corporate Equality Index is one that scores corporations on basically how woke they are. So the 100 score that Toyota has for 15 consecutive years means that Toyota is actually funding transitions not just for their employees, but also for the children of employees in states where it is legal. Just check out this recent video of the HRC president.
Donald Trump doesn't love America. Donald Trump doesn't believe in America. He wants to erase us.
That is who Toyota has hitched their wagon to. And I want to point something out. It's not just the score. They have partnered with the HRC to support the Equality Act, which again, Orwellian name, has nothing to do with equality. It means that men can go in the bathroom with your daughters. It means that boys and men can play against girls and women in sports. It is the invasion of female spaces. That is what that bill actually is. But it doesn't end there. It gets worse. They also partnered with the HRC to put out a letter that is a statement against anti-LGBTQ plus state legislation. I wonder what that is. Let's take a look. The quote, anti-LGBTQ plus legislation that they're talking about, they say pertains to transgender youth. So the bills they are opposing are the ones like the one we got passed here in Tennessee that bans sex change surgeries, hormones, and puberty blockers for children. So if you're a Toyota driver or customer, you have to ask yourself, why is Toyota so interested in making sure that it is legal for children to get sex changes? I think that's weird. I personally do not feel comfortable giving my money to a company that is supporting and pushing for children to be able to get sex changes. Their ties with the HRC are deep. They have also been a title sponsor for the Time to Thrive event for the HRC. You can see here. The Time to Thrive event was held in cooperation with the NEA, the largest teachers union, and the entire conference was essentially built around pushing wokeness into education, and that includes the crazy gender ideology. At this conference, they literally talked about how to bring LGBTQ plus lesson plans in for elementary school. And if you're a Toyota customer, just know that Toyota is bragging about giving $300,000 specifically to LGBTQ plus organizations to help them during the pandemic. Part of that money went to the HRC, but part of it went to the Trevor Project. What's the issue with the Trevor Project? The Trevor Project hosts forums for adults to talk to teens about secretly transitioning and to talk about sex. The Trevor Project has something called a quick exit feature for children so that it will wipe from their browser history and remove the website from the screen in case their parents walk in while they're on it. One mom even went undercover on the Trevor Project forums and she came across adult transgender identifying individuals who were going and talking to children about their masturbation addictions and about autogynephilia, which is men who are aroused by the idea of being a woman. In some cases, minors were found on the Trevor Project forum chats talking to adults about BDSM, sexual preferences, and were even asked by adults about paraphilias with questions like, what's the weirdest sexual thing you know? Again, I'm willing to make a very bold bet that most Toyota customers in Japan and in the United States are not cool with knowing that Toyota has given at least $100,000 to the Trevor Project now that they know what goes on at the Trevor Project. Toyota does draw lines though on what requests they will fund. Where do they draw that line? Churches. Toyota also brags about taking part in the HRC's Workplace Equality Summit, which essentially is a summit to push wokeness in the workplace. They also brag about partnerships with Lambda Legal and the Dallas Resource Center, all three of which support transitioning children. Yes, sex changes for kids. Again, I don't know why this keeps coming up for a car company, why they would be so interested and so enthusiastic about supporting the transition of children. Children who, again, are not old enough to buy cigarettes, get a tattoo, or anything else along those lines, but they're advocating for sex changes. Like many of the other companies we've highlighted, Toyota also has ERG groups where they separate employees into these groups based on what race they are or what type of sex they like to have. And yes, it is the employee's choice to enter these groups, but it's done on company time with company money. Now see, I think it's weird because back when I was younger, if you went to work and you talked about what kind of sex you like to have or you signaled it in some way, that was considered sexual harassment. But now you get a club for it at work? That's a little odd. And listen, this isn't about the fact that people are gay. You're an adult. Do what you want. I've been very clear about that. It's the reality that there are different rules for different groups of people. That is fundamental unfairness, period. And it's also about the fact that it is just not appropriate for work. Toyota's also really big on allyship and adding your pronouns to your email, which they reiterate multiple times. Those ERG groups are also the reason why Toyota won the Audi Awards at the Out and Equal Awards for their ERG group and their push for LGBTQ plus equity. And by the way, just something to get ready for, their LGBTQ plus ERG has updated company policy to fly the, quote, progress flag at Toyota's U.S. locations. Do you guys think Toyota allows their Christian employees to fly a Christian flag the way they allow the LGBTQ plus group to fly their flag? I don't think so. And again, this is divisive to people because many people disagree with the idea of transitioning children, and this flag has come to prominence as a byproduct of the movement to legalize the transition of children. Spectrum is the name of Toyota's LGBTQ plus ERG. They also were responsible in part of creating a self-identification policy. That policy ensures that coworkers have to call you by whatever name or pronoun you decide you now suddenly are. So if you're Bob today, but you decide you're Betty tomorrow, well, they better say she, her, and call you Betty, or you're a bigot. Toyota also has a diversity supplier program, again, giving, quote, diverse suppliers preferential treatment over suppliers who are, quote, non-diverse, aka white. I'm not sure how anybody sees this as anything other than discrimination. Here's the reality, how the world is supposed to work. Whoever is the best supplier, they should get the contract. Whoever is best for the job should get the job. Your race is never supposed to be considered in hiring, neither is your sex. I'm a minority myself, and I'm disgusted by these programs. I just want everybody treated fairly. We're gonna have the contact information in the caption for you to be able to reach out to Toyota and tell them yourself how you feel about them adopting DEI, woke policies, and supporting the transition of children. But the last thing I want to do here is speak directly to the Toyota executives because I know they will be watching. Let me be very clear about what our movement wants. We want something very simple. I don't need you to adopt our politics. I don't need you to message our politics. We just want neutrality. We want fairness. That means treat everybody kind at work. That should be the expectation. But we don't want to worry about if a company is going to use the money we spend with them to turn around and give it to an organization that either explicitly hates us or will use it to fund things that are diametrically opposed to our deeply held values. We don't want to know what your politics are. They could be anything. We just want to be able to buy a product from you. But unfortunately, you have forced us into a position where we now need to go and check to see if the company is going to be supporting the craziest woke things of the day. So please, just step away from the divisive policy. Stay out of social issues, stay out of politics, unless it directly affects your ability to make cars, period. This video is already so long and I didn't have time to even put in the stuff about woke trainings, the crazy interviews with executives, or any of the other stuff we found, but we will release those separately. I do, however, need to say, this needs to stop, period. But I am going to warn you guys, Toyota is captured by woke. I honestly think they may be the first company that does not change any policy, but it's your job to make sure they regret that. So use your wallet as a weapon, use your voice, and speak up. If you love what we're doing exposing woke companies and removing woke policies at corporations, then you can support us by subscribing to my X page for $5 a month, or if you don't want to subscribe, just go to robbiestarbuck.com/DEI. If you want to expose your company for going woke, then please also give us a tip at robbiestarbuck.com/DEI. You can let us know about your company there, and we can review it to see if it will be one of the companies that we feature to expose and hopefully change policy at. Many of you have been following my series exposing companies for going woke. The most recent video that received millions and millions of views was our expose on Toyota for going woke. Well, today I have got some amazing news to report to you guys. Toyota has just sent this email out to their employees and dealerships, and here's what they had to say. Toyota's business partnering groups, which are very similar to ERGs at other companies, going forward are going to focus solely on business-related topics. It's going to be about mentoring, networking, professional development, and volunteering. Another big win, Toyota is going to focus on STEM education and workforce readiness. As a result, they will no longer sponsor cultural events such as festivals and parades that are not related to STEM education and workforce readiness. That means no more pride events, no more pride parades, no more pride camps. Now my favorite part, because you guys know this is always my favorite part. They are no longer going to participate in the Human Rights Campaign's CEI scoring system. That woke scoring system, basically a social credit system, is made to advance wokeness in corporate America. Toyota is no longer going to be taking part. Why is that extra juicy this time? It's really especially sweet this time because the president of the HRC just recently had a gala for the HRC where she specifically shouted out Lexus, a brand of Toyotas, as being one of their strongest supporters. Watch this.
We've got companies like American Airlines and Apple here tonight, like Match and Macy's. We've got Lyft and Lexus. We see you. We appreciate you. We know your commitment, and we are going to stand strong with you as long as you're standing strong with us. Isn't that right, HRC?
Again, after over a decade of being an HRC supporter and being part of their CEI scoring system, Toyota has pulled out of the HRC. It is a massive win for sanity. Just look at the HRC social media. They just attack conservatives on a regular basis, day over day, okay? People have had enough. We're not going to support companies who support organizations like this that push radical policy and push nothing but hate for customers that these companies depend on, okay? We want to come into stores that respect us. Respect us by being neutral and staying out of divisive issues like politics and social issues. That's all we want. We don't want you to adopt our policies, our politics. Just be neutral and stay out of the divisive issues of the day. That is all we are asking corporate America, and we are winning. We have a 100% strike rate on flipping these companies. We are doing an incredible job, and by we, I mean you guys. Without you guys sharing these stories and them going viral, we would not have this success. So please, keep sharing these stories, keep supporting what we're doing, and if you want us to expose more woke companies and continue to build our research team, support us with a $5 subscription on my X account, or go to robbiestarbuck.com/DEI, where you can do a one-time support method or be a whistleblower against a woke company. You can do that again at RobbieStarbuck.com/DEI. I'm very happy to report that sanity is making a comeback. We will not stop. We are coming to change corporate America for good and bring sanity back. Last thing, I know this video is shorter than usual. I am in a hurry. We are doing disaster relief in East Tennessee. Please check out my X page, x.com/RobbieStarbuck, to see what we're doing to help the recovery efforts from this brutal storm. We're working with local officials, state officials, to make sure the people who need help most are getting help. So I don't have a lot of time to go through every fine detail here, but we've got a massive change, big win at Toyota, big win for sanity. Thank you, every single one of you guys who have shared this. Get the word out. Sanity is winning again, and we will not stop until we have changed the entirety of corporate America and brought back just some semblance of normalcy, okay? Listen, this isn't about hate. I want people who believe in every different type of thing to be able to coexist at work. That means neutrality from these companies. I want everybody to be able to shop without thinking that they're giving their money to a company that's going to turn around and use it to spend it on things that are diametrically opposed to your personal values, period. So companies just need to stay out of all of the divisive issues of the day and focus on having a great business, a great product, and great service. That is what should determine the winners and losers in business, and what should determine the winners and losers when it comes to hiring is merit. Are you good? Are you good at what you do? Are you the best? That is what matters. Are you innovative? That is what matters. Are you kind? Be kind. That's it. That should be the simple metric that we go by in business, period. Thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you for being a part of changing the country with this project to bring sanity back to corporate America.
So at the Coke store, you can personalize a message. You can put Allah loves you. Or you could even put, let me see, let's just try it out. Buddha loves you. But you cannot even type in the word Jesus. We cannot allow this text on the can. Everything else is good though. Even if I put, let's see, Satan.
Oh, no, bro.
Hold on. Satan loves you. You could put that. You could put Satan loves you, Allah loves you, Buddha loves you. But when you type in this word, you can't even type the word in. That's crazy. That's ridiculous.
Because we all know, because all three of us here know about DEI, right? Robbie Starbuck has basically, Robbie Starbuck has elevated himself up to the same level as, say, James O'Keefe or Tim Pool when it comes to exposing people. Robbie Starbuck, whereas James O'Keefe will expose corruption in terms of immigration, that sort of thing. Robbie Starbuck tends to do it in terms of companies. The number of companies that Robbie Starbuck has exposed is starting to get pretty long. Tractor Supply, John Deere, I think it was Home Hardware or Home Depot, Harley Davidson, Jack Daniels, Ford, and now he has turned his attention to Toyota. Now, I won't say, I mean, I want to say that Robbie Starbuck has got some unique perspective on this, but if you go to, I think it's the HRC website, HRC like literally has this long list, probably about as long as my arm, of all the companies that support DEI and the HRC and DEI initiatives. And it's pretty easy for Robbie Starbuck to go in and take a look at various corporations and just to start emailing people to find out what's going on. Toyota was actually fairly easy. Disney got exposed, although that one was done by James O'Keefe. Disney's also been exposed, and of course there was a now legendary Bud Light situation that occurred over a year ago now. The whole thing with Toyota is, of course, Toyota was caught supporting all of the usual suspects. The only thing that was different about Toyota as opposed to, say, Ford or Jack Daniels or whatever is that Toyota was kind of, they made one commercial that kind of suggested they were, but Toyota, to a great extent, wasn't right up front with what they were doing. I'm going to point out that a lot of companies, now that Robbie Starbucks is starting to pick companies off, have begun removing DEI from their websites. But yeah, Toyota was caught supporting a lot of the woke content and a lot of the grooming and whatever that is being currently done in the U.S. The reason why Toyota, at least in North America, was being quiet about it is that Toyota is controlled by, I think ultimately is still controlled by a corporation back in Japan. Now, Japan is nowhere near as woke or tolerant for wokeism as they are in the United States or Europe for that matter. And if the controlling corporation had found out that Toyota was doing this to the extent that they actually were, and the Robbie Starbuck video on this on Twitter is apparently 13 minutes long. This, I don't think the controlling interests back in Japan would be very happy about this. I haven't heard any follow-up. But given the way the Japanese tend to handle stuff behind the scenes as opposed to out front, there's that whole face-saving issue that goes on with the Japanese. I suspect that what's going to go on with Toyota is that there's just going to be some quiet shuffling of people out of positions, and there's going to be some quiet closure of certain projects that Toyota in North America has been supporting. But there won't be, like, in Japan, they try to avoid publicly humiliating people because losing face in Japan, I'm just guessing here, but losing face in Japan is a serious issue. And, but I mean, Robbie Starbuck, the video that Robbie Starbuck did on X exposing Toyota was probably his longest one yet, and I think he probably had to have it be a little bit longer because of the controlling interest of Toyota. Now, the second part of the corporate sector, and I got to point out here, like, technically, for all intents and purposes, I'm an atheist. So this does not affect me directly, but Coca-Cola was offering to make personal Coke cans for people. You could order a 6-pack of Coke from the main factory in Atlanta, and you could have spelled on it whatever you wanted. Somebody took the time and effort, and I suspect what would have happened here is that somebody decided to go to go to the website and type in Jesus loves you, and he couldn't do it because of religious separation of church and state. However, the same individual then proceeded to do this with Allah and with Buddha and with Vishnu and some of the other non-Western deities, and he was able to get those in just fine. At one point, although it got taken down almost immediately, they had the good sense to not have Satan loves you on the can. They didn't allow that one either, but they got caught. And what they did is that they changed it when they got caught so that now you can't pick any religious figures at all. Like, you can't have Allah loves you, Buddha loves you, Jesus loves you, whatever, on any of the cans. Like, there's no religious connotations to these personalized pop cans at all. But the bottom line is that somebody at Coca-Cola had to make a conscious decision. And keep in mind, folks, Coca-Cola corporate headquarters is based in Atlanta, Georgia, which is the Deep South. had to make a conscious decision to not allow that particular can, but allow the other religions. And while I'm not, like I say, I'm not particularly religious and I have no skin in the game, you know, this is still a very disturbing trend. Coca-Cola did fix it, but they fixed it only after they got caught. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Okay. This is interesting. I'm not familiar with Robert Starbuck myself, but I've got a lot of questions about John Deere specifically, mainly in relation to right to repair and self-ownership or ownership of the tractors and vehicles. But I've also heard in last week that John Deere is thinking about moving a lot of the operations to Latin America, probably Brazil. But again, that's just rumors. In relation to the actual issue, I suppose it's the old go woke, go broke argument. I find it interesting that a lot of these companies are bending over to DEI ideology at the expense of their revenue, of their profits, which raises some questions about what their shareholders are thinking about the DEI, because obviously it affects their bottom line. There was a point. I call myself an agnostic as far as religion's concerned, but in the UK especially, we've seen I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Ignorance of Christian and Judaism in favor of Islam, especially when it comes to things like the recent protests in this country, whereas in relation to the Palestine and Israel conflict, where the police have been less than even-handed, allowing Islam or Palestinian activists having a fairly sort of free-for-all movement, and then when Christians and people of the Jewish faith have protested, the police have been fairly heavy-handed in certain cases, and I'm thinking of mainly the Metropolitan Police in London. So yeah, there's been less than there's been a disparity between or there's been let's say a somewhat biased approach by the police in the UK in relation to religious related or religious theocratic or theology related protests in recent months.
I think Naroki fell
Yeah.
asleep.
I'm here. I'm here.
Sure.
Are you done? Yeah. If Mark,
Yeah.
when you're finished, you just say you got to turn it over to Roger or something.
Okay,
We're
fine.
not guessing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Roger, you're up.
Okay, so the thing with the religious deal, for me personally, I think that a lot of stuff on that situation is getting out of hand, and it has to do with like ownership here in the United States. We have the right to own our land, you know what I mean? And it's written right there in the Constitution, codified 100%, you know. And when you take and you look at these public spaces like airports and stuff like that, they're making it to where the federal government, the FCC, is telling these airports that they can't put up a Christmas tree, you know, for Christmas. And I personally disagree with that because that's still property that's owned by an individual. It doesn't matter how rich that dude is, that's still his property. If he wants to put a Christmas tree up in that airport, he has every right to do it. And there shouldn't be any kind of organization that steps in and says you can't do that because this is a public space. You know what I mean? He's actually allowing them to use his property, you know, to freaking fly airplanes in and out and have people come into that airport, you know. And I think that's one thing that I have a real big problem against, where we're allowing the government to kind of overreach and take control over things that they really constitutionally don't have the right to have when it comes to their power and everything. It's what I said too, you know, is if you turn around and you give your rights away to the government, freaking, that means you have less rights and they have more rights, and people are doing it constantly every day of the week for years now, for decades, even at least a century. You know, they've just been saying, you know what, I don't want to deal with this. I'll let them take care of it. You know what I mean? And here in the United States, with our sovereignty, freaking, we the people are the ones who are the sovereignty in this country. You know what I mean? I'm still trying to work it out with England and Canada. I know you guys are all wishy-washy about your constitutions and stuff, so I'm still trying to get used to the whole idea of what's going on there, you know, because it blew me out of the water when I found out Canada didn't have a constitution until like the 80s or so. You know what I mean? That just completely blew me out of the water. I just could not believe that, because almost every single European country has a constitution. The ones that are still constitutional governments, that is, you know. And when I found that out, that flipped me out. I think Australia and New Zealand even had constitutions before Canada. So when it comes to ours, though, it's like I said, you know, the people, we are the sovereignty, and we're the ones who are supposed to have. We're supposed to be in charge of the government. The government's not in charge of us. You know what I mean? They don't tell us what to do. We're the ones who are supposed to tell them what to do. And as time went by, we just started relinquishing that right and handing it over to the government and allowing them to make decisions for us, when in reality, we're the ones who are supposed to make those decisions. Now, the thing with John Deere and all that stuff, man, I think I mentioned it before when we were talking about John Deere and the tractor thing. I think people are catching on to watching Ag Day and Agriculture, Ag Report, and things like that, because if you get on like shows that talk about agriculture, which I do all the time, you'll start hearing things that freaking you don't necessarily hear in mainstream media in other areas. Like you'll start realizing that these companies also endorse GMOs. They push it on the whole community and stuff like that, and they're really big on that. So I think people are starting to figure that out, you know. So that I'm gonna go ahead and pass.
Um, I've been following a YouTube channel for some time that's been presented by Lewis Rossman, which is a
Oh yeah, Louis Rossman. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, mainly an Apple technician, or not an Apple employed technician, but an independent technician that repairs consumer devices, and mainly Apple devices. And he's been a big fan of the right to repair movement in there. He's a big advocate of the right to repair movement, and he has been extremely critical about John Deere. John Deere is totally anti sort of the right to repair idea, and John Deere always uses excuses like safety and proprietary software and licensing, and yeah, John Deere is not a very nice company at all, to be fair.
Watching John Deere get its ass handed to them when Robbie Starbuck exposed them was actually quite nice, because I had sort of heard about what was going on with John Deere, but it wasn't until like this whole thing with them. Like, keep in mind too, the people who use John Deere products tend to be right of center, conservatives, farmers, that type of thing. And it's like, on top of the right to repair, they're going around and using the revenue that they get from these people to go and support causes that most of their customers don't believe in. So yeah, John Deere took a double whammy, and they took a knee to this one. Yeah, Rossman is the guy I follow. I mean, when he came up with that Gray J app and what happened to him there, and he has pointed out in particular with YouTube, and we're kind of getting off on a bit of a tangent here, so we'll get back on topic here in just a second. He's pointed out that from where he's sitting and from where a lot of people are sitting, YouTube is probably on its last legs. They're acting like a company that's going through their couches digging for spare change. And, that whole thing, I'm not even going to get into, because I covered it extensively while it was happening. The way YouTube was trying to force you to watch ads was just disgusting. But anyway, let's move on to the next topic here.
Can I add one thing in, though, too?
Go ahead.
Okay, now, one thing, I kind of got distracted there, and I had to mute my microphone real quick, but also the thing with this whole thing with HRC, okay? The thing that I noticed whenever I was checking out Toyota was the reason why all this popped up is because Toyota recently, within the last week or so, has decided they're going to back out of the Human Rights Council's Corporate Equity Index. And that really hit big on the news here in the United States. Now, whenever me and Mark and another guy by the name of Tan Hai Tran was talking about the car companies here in the United States and the hackers that took over their information, they held them ransom, okay? And come to find out that the people that were in charge of watching over their filing systems and everything, they were an equity firm that went private after being a corporation, And when you guys were talking about the floor, on that's what these equity firms do, is they gut the entire business out, and they freaking they basically do just a minimum on everything, including security. Now, this equity index that they're talking about is a list of companies who are on this list, and if they believe in this woke idea that is supposed to have to do something with diversity, equity and inclusion, then they get perks. You know what I mean? They get recommendations and stuff. Now, what I find out about that is something that I had a problem with these charities, because, like, I have no problem with charities reaching out and asking people for donations, but when I get on or I start watching TV and I see Easter Seals come out with a commercial where they're asking people to donate to them, and then they start bringing up words like freaking equity and diversity and inclusion. I know exactly what they're talking about. They're a part of this Human Rights Council, this HRC, and that's the things I have that I pay attention to, and I hear. Once I start hearing stuff like that, then I know where they're coming from and what they're about. So I wanted to add that in too.
Just, I know we want to move on, but just a couple points. Roger, you were talking about Canada not having a constitution. Before 82, I believe that we're using the UK constitution.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which is, we've got to remember that America has got a codified single document constitution, whereas in the UK, our constitution is not codified into a single document. It's multiple documents. That may change, especially with Labour being in power for the moment. But for the moment, and it has always been, it's been a constitution of multiple documents. There was another point you made. In relation to the so-called long march through the institutions, a concept I haven't coined up, but a concept that ever since the end of World War II, we've seen extreme, let's say, cultural Marxism slowly creep into society, mainly by public institutions or public sector institutions. In the last 20 odd years, we've seen a rampant increase in this concept. And to the point that we see now, where even companies are pushing DEI and pushing the so-called long march. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the next topic here. Yeah, we're going to be talking about Alex Jones. It's strange how Alex Jones has not really been a topic that I have covered very often. I mean, my first exposure to alt content was Coast to Coast AM, and it was right in the transition between when Art Bell was stepping away and George Norrie took over. George Norrie had Alex Jones on quite frequently. Alex Jones is he's an entertainer. He's very, very opinionated, or at least publicly, he's very opinionated. Now, what happened is what they had that to Adam Lanza, that school shooter incident. I can't remember what the name of that school was. It's no longer there, though. And I'm not going, well, actually, I personally don't give a shit if they take my YouTube channel down. And I'm not on Spotify or anything like that. There are enough question marks about the Lanza shooting that haven't been asked, and even a lot of people in the alt media won't ask because of what happened specifically with Alex Jones. Alex Jones suggested that basically, the parents were like fake parents and that the school shooting didn't actually happen and that this was just a false flag event. Now, there were some unhinged individuals who ran with that and went after the parents. The parents got pissed off and they decided instead of going after the actual unhinged individuals that believed Alex Jones, they decided to go after Alex Jones. Now, it has been he got taken to court, and the judge hit him with a ridiculous settlement in terms of the plaintiffs against Alex Jones for over $1 billion. And they have been basically trying to any attempts that Alex Jones has made to try to come up with a reasonable payment structure for the settlement have fallen on deaf ears. They've literally almost like crawled up his rear end with a microscope to try and find any hidden money. Basically, this was an attempt to shut Alex Jones down. Here's the problem is that, it's not, the situation has gone beyond just Alex Jones now. And there's a whole lot of other people covering content like this as well. Now, I don't know enough about the Lanza shooting to really comment on that. The thing that got pointed out to me about Alex Jones, though, is that, we saw during the COVID situation, at least in North America, I don't know what it was like over in Britain, but in North America, we saw unhinged people in the media say stuff and do stuff that affected government opinion and caused potentially people to lose their jobs, potentially lose their livelihood, potentially lose their family, their friends, destroy their careers, all because, for instance, the province I live in Alberta, the head of medical services in Alberta, and the press here covered up for her. Turns out that the person who was responsible was making the chief medical decisions in Alberta during COVID was a paranoid DEI hypochondriac. And she said some stuff which, even edited, looked very unhinged, but it wasn't until Daniel Smith became the premier and they actually started releasing this footage. There's one particular case where she made an announcement, and literally she would make a statement, she would wash her hands, rub her face down, and then put her mask on. And during this whole press conference, she put her mask on 5 or 6 times in about 15 minutes. And it's you could tell that this was not a woman who should be giving a premier of a Canadian province medical advice on anything, and the press covered that up. No, there was a lawsuit, and because it was no longer it was now Daniel Smith who was the premier of Alberta and not the guy who was before him. She just sort of said, okay, well, I wasn't the premier, I wasn't the one in charge, so yeah, we'll just settle the lawsuit. And all of this stuff got revealed. Daniel Smith used that to, she gutted the senior administration of the medical boards in Alberta, but that's an example of what happened, though. People with agendas made decisions that affected a lot of people, but nobody at any point in time held the press accountable. I'm just talking about what happened here in Alberta. I can't talk about what happened, say, down in California or anywhere else. Nobody here has held any of the press accountable for running block for this woman, not Daniel Smith, the head of the medical board here, the chief medical officer in the province of Alberta. The only people who held her accountable, and this was the chief medical officer of Alberta, was somebody who decided to take her to court, but nobody actually took the press to court, or nobody has attempted to take the press to court anywhere over COVID. And there were definitely some lies, some really bad, egregious lies told about COVID. I just recently posted up on my Facebook feed, for instance, a situation where, and this is Fauci has said very recently that at no point was he talking about shutting down the government, and somebody went back and found 2 cases where he did say that they were going to shut the government down and posted them right next to each other. And nobody's held Fauci accountable for that either. And the economy has never recovered. Hollywood is definitely never going to recover from COVID. And yeah, that's my take on this. Mark, you're up.
I've not really taken very much notice of Infowars, Alex Jones, since the prosecution. I haven't actually heard anything from him since, really, but I presume that his finances are in some dire straits at this present moment, and hence why operations like Infowars would have to be shut down. I'm guessing anyway. But as far as the official sort of narrative, I think in this country, in fact, I heard Rishi Sunak, the last prime minister of this country, still using the safe and effective argument for the vaccines that we had, or some people had. Majority of the UK, I think 80%. I think at least I had the first vaccine. Thankfully, I didn't have any. I refused all. But there are a couple other issues in relation to this. There's been an ongoing sort of, let's say, independent investigations into things like the BBC's bias, and in recent weeks, in fact, recent days, there's been some real major questions asked about the BBC's bias, especially in relation to the Israel and Palestine war, but the bias is wider, so yeah, also encompasses things like their reporting of the COVID outbreak. And again, I argued that there should be questions about other organisations in the UK, such as ITN, the Independent Television News organisation, and Sky. Another thing, you were talking about nobody being prosecuted, and that reminded me of the of people like Chris Whitty in the UK, which was at the time the UK's governmental medical advisor, senior government medical advisor. I believe he's made a statement within the last week or two in relation to his actions during COVID. But again, very little has happened, and the Minister for Health at the time, Michael Hunt, or Hunt, I can't remember his first name. I believe should be fully investigated. But also, there's at the time UK government or UK governments, no plural, have been using Krangos or non-governmental organisations to act as so-called nudge units. The sort of idea of hearts and minds, pushing people into doing what they want or doing what these governmental or non-government organizational or organizations want, and there's the question at the time, one of the biggest nudge units in the UK was a organisation called SAGE. And they were pushing, a lot of the COVID sort of governmental line, and it has been proven, in fact, it's been stated by some of the, I think now ex-officials of SAGE, that they were actual active communists, and I mean members of the Communist Party of the United Kingdom. So yeah, there's been some serious questions. There should be some serious questions about their activities and how their activities influenced public perception. And I would personally like to see certain people go to court over this, but I seriously doubt that this is court cases will happen, but you never know. Anyway, Roger, have you got any views?
Okay. When it comes to Alex Jones, I'm kind of torn on a lot of that stuff because there's some things that I did agree with him, and then there's some things I didn't agree with him. First of all, like with him getting in trouble, he got in trouble mostly because of Sandy Hook, and my personal opinion on that was pretty disgusting. You know, I never did agree with his ideas on Sandy Hook, saying that it was fake and that those children weren't murdered in that school. You know what I mean? With that being said, there was other aspects that he got into that I did agree with. Like I get into a lot of the conspiracy theory and stuff like that. I have to do it in the platforms that I do, you know. So he had a belief in the whole prison planet thing, and that was fine with me. I was all right with it because to me it seemed like he believed in the stuff that he said he was talking about. But you started seeing a change with Alex Jones when he started getting into politics, when he started supporting Donald Trump the first time he ran for president. He just became this freaking psychopath political freaking idiot, basically. Like he would do stupid shit, like he targeted that one dude off of the Young Turks, and he would literally freaking antagonize him and stuff. He did it during the convention during that year, and he did it just so that he could like draw attention to himself, and he everything became politics to him. And I remember back when that was going on, I was one of the people in the comment sections of his videos, as well as a lot of other people who said, look, man, you know, you need to back off of this stuff because you're getting a little crazy, you know, because before all that happened, he didn't seem to get caught up in like the political motor, you know, and stuff like that, and start jumping up and down and cheering for somebody like they were, Jesus Christ superstar, and that's what he turned into when it came to Donald Trump. And the other day, there was a guy that I was listening to on another show, and he kept using the term targeted individuals. And I said, well, with that term, a lot of people like to just throw that word around, and they need to kind of be a little bit more precise on what they're referring to when they say targeted individuals. And for Alex Jones, he would fit into that category, because he did support Donald Trump, and he backed him a lot. He put a lot of time, money, and interest into Donald Trump's presidency. And because he did that, I feel like he became a targeted individual. So whenever the elections were done, he was one of those people, just like Donald Trump is right now, who's getting brought up on charges and prosecuted and freaking sued for as much as they can get out of them, because they want to see them crumble. So for me, it makes perfect sense why Infowars is officially shutting down, because he put himself out there, and he had made mistakes in the past that he really shouldn't have done. He shouldn't have started running his mouth on television saying that those kids in that school didn't exist, because he pissed off quite a few parents who decided that wasn't cool, and these groups of people, like Mark was talking about with NGOs, decided, hey, you know what, this is a good idea. Why don't we contact those parents and get a lawsuit going up against them? So that's what happened, in my opinion. It was all politically motivated, and these people came together and they sued his ass and took every penny he had, and that's the price he had to pay. The last time I seen him, he was looking horrible, dude. You could tell that a lot of that stuff had taken its toll on him, because like he was always like shaved and bragging about how much weight he's lost because he was on that new diet pill and shit, and he thought he looked better than what he did when he was 17, and he was like a 45-year-old man, and then all of a sudden you see him sitting there on the camera and he's got whiskers on his face and shit, and like, oh man, so you could see the difference in him. And he didn't let on in his conversation, but you could tell by looking at him that the wear and tear was there. So I'm not saying bad things just intentionally on Alex Jones either. Like, I have my disagreements with a lot of other people that are in the whole conspiracy theory category, where they start out one way and then they end up being a totally different person. David Icke is another one that I really believe started out where he did it all just for a gimmick, so that he could get attention. Because at first he ended up being like an ex-freaking football player turned sports announcer who said that he was the son of God, I believe. He changed from that to freaking seeing reptilians and shit, and claiming Queen Elizabeth was a freaking draconian, And then from there, all of a sudden, he's got people coming into a coliseum paying like $20 to sit in a chair so that he could sit on stage, hold hands with everybody, and sing Kumbaya. You know what I mean? And all artsy-fartsy and spiritual and shit. This is the same man that freaking started out the way I said, saying that he was Jesus, and freaking then, reptilians were disguising themselves as freaking the royal family and shit. And today, you'll never hear him talk about that shit. You'll never hear him say it. He'll talk about freaking what is it, G5. And he'll talk about freaking, shit like that, but you'll never hear him talk about the reptilians no more. And that's when I liked David Icke. I loved it when he talked about those damn reptiles. And you could see now when you look back at it and compare it to today, how these people do this shit so that they can get publicity and they can get attention. And it's all about the money to them. They don't really believe what they're talking about, and they just push this information so that freaking they can get ahead in life. So that's all I got.
Just remind me of the old the water is turning the frogs gay joke. I personally got a bit of a bias there. I've not been a big fan of Alex. I've never been a big fan of Alex Jones. I consider him to be more performative than I don't know how one call him an activist, but more performative than a commentator or a journalist. And I want to caveat the word journalist because but yes, let's call him a commentator. He's more of a performative artist rather than a commentator. Roger, you were thinking about when you talked about Young Turks. I presume you were talking about Uyghur.
We call him Chunk Ugger here, but that's
yeah. I've not watched a episode of Young Turks since, I don't know, 2014, 2015. Both him and his co-presenter, what's her name? I can't think of her name at the moment.
Anna Kasparian.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you. I found both of them to be extremely irritating and somewhat frustrating, to be fair. And I've not really heard very much from her. But fun enough, I did see a interview between Chang and Douglas Murray not that long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I noticed that Shank, whatever, he's still pushing. He cannot make a good argument to save his life. He has to always go back to the sort of name calling thing. Whenever any point I'm raised towards him, it will start calling the other person racist or some name. All I can say is the Young Turks, in my opinion, are hosted by pathetic little individuals.
Yes, exactly. They're all the same crowd. I agree with you 100%, dude. They are just horrible. And I'm including Alex Jones in that too. All of them. They're all horrible people. And they play games with one another for attention. That's all they do. Performers, just like you said, that's all they are. They're just performers. And they care absolutely nothing about real journalism, whatsoever. I find it that these people who claim they're alternative media are just as big of liars as what the mainstream media is when it comes to being liars, you know what I mean? Because one side will tell you this group bunch of lies, and then this other side will tell you the same shit, or just as many lies, but different stuff, So
I won't say all alternative media. There I can think of a few good alternative media, especially in the UK. But it goes back to the point of you shouldn't fully believe anything you hear. You should do your own research all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, always do your own research and come to your own conclusions.
No, what's the alternative media in England that you're talking about? Because I really
I mentioned them to you, especially two people. A person called by the name of Jeff Taylor, which has got a YouTube channel under that name, and also I can't remember what the other one was. Somebody who was born in Iran, 2C TV. Remember rightly?
The only one I know of is from Iran that was born there was Sybil. What's her face?
I did mention it in general in mine's chat a couple of weeks ago, actually.
Sybil Edmond, that's who it was. She's the only one I know of. Yeah. No, the other one that I do listen to is Corbett. I like listening to the Corbett report back when it was going on. I think he's doing Rumble now, but so he's a pretty good one. He is pretty unbiased about a lot of the stuff he talks about.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shut up because I know this has to be annoying Naroki.
Sure. I just referenced the two channels. I found the two channels just now, so I'll just reference them in chat.
Are we done talking about Infowars here?
Yeah.
Can we move on? Okay. All right.
Yeah, feel free.
All right. So the next one, this was probably a little bit more up your alley, Mark. Pavel Durov. As we all know, he got arrested in. I'm gonna have to check him out. Pavel Durov got arrested in France. Now, Telegram had a very tight security system, and I mean, a lot of the people, and during the Canadian convoy, there was a lot of and a lot of anti-vax content was also readily available on Telegram. Telegram became a go-to for a lot of alt discussion. There was a problem with that, though, and it was one that the French government, obviously, and the West was really. Apparently, Pavel Durov had been approached by intelligence agencies in the U.S. to allow backdoor access to his platform, which he turned down. But the whole situation with Durov is that with that high level of security, you also ended up having human traffickers, drug dealers, criminal elements, whatever, conducting their business on that platform. And there was no way that law enforcement agencies could detect or deal with any of the stuff going on there because Pavel Durov would not allow government access. So again, you have the yin and the yang. So when Pavel Durov came to France, they arrested him. And what ended up happening is that I guess perhaps maybe to avoid spending the rest of his life, spending time in jail in France. And this was, by the way, despite the fact that the U.S. and the French governments both denied this was politically motivated, it absolutely was politically motivated. Pavel Durov decided to end the anonymity on Telegram. So Telegram is not a completely safe platform anymore. Now, this again has a dual edge to it. Yes, alt content is not nearly as safe on Telegram anymore. The flip side of that is you also have human traffickers, drug dealers, arms merchants, basically that really nasty criminal element also doesn't have anonymity on Telegram anymore. either. Now, here's the thing about that. The deep state or the puppeteers behind the scenes have used, for instance, in North America, and I'm having to assume this is the case that all over the West, if you are seen, for instance, attempting to cross the Canada-U.S. border with a suspiciously large amount of cash, they will detain you for having a lot of cash on you, even though technically it's not any of their goddamn business how or where you got that money, and they can legally seize it if they think it's part of a criminal enterprise, and they do all the time. And they have made it really difficult for people to carry, and they've also made it, well, again, they've also made it a whole lot more convenient over the years to keep your money digitally in a bank, obviously. Now, that being said, a lot of this also has to do with the fact that criminals tend to use this. However, they basically have piggybacked off of that as a justification to get Orwellian, for lack of a better term, about their own citizens. For instance, in if you want to go into a bank and withdraw, say, $2,000 in cash, right? You will get hassled severely if you take out a large amount of money, even if it's your money. They will give you a hard time about it, and this is a two-edged sword. Again, Pavel Durov probably should have known better than to travel to the West, knowing what is going, especially coming from Russia, knowing the way the West is treating Russia right now. There's no guarantee what Putin. We have no way of knowing what Putin is going to do to Pavel Durov when he returns to Russia. At this point, Putin, and I'm under, if I have to choose between Putin and Zelensky, I would take Putin. Keep in mind, Putin is one seriously ruthless son of a bitch. I mean, he's not Stalin by any stretch of the imagination. And I would definitely say he's definitely more competent as a leader than certainly Joe Biden or whoever it is they got running Britain right now, or definitely better than Trudeau. But Putin has demonstrated ruthless tendencies in the past. So, who knows what's going to happen to Pavel Durov, but Durov had to cave to authorities and allow government agencies backdoor. I believe it was backdoor access to his platform. So, Telegram is no longer an anonymous platform, which, again, has both a good and a bad side to it. But I think Mark Edworthy would probably be a little bit more capable of commenting on this one. So I'm going to let Mark run away with this.
Okay. To be fair, I was surprised that he was arrested himself. I know he's the CEO, but surely it should be the company that should be prosecuted rather than individually. I thought he may be the CEO, but on the other hand, he's only the CEO of the company. The company is a much more wider sort of, or a single person does not make a company. So I was quite surprised that he was arrested. Where do I start with this? There have been governments, especially in UK, Australia, and Canada, have been introducing bills or acts in relation to monitoring
internet privacy, monitoring.
Internet privacy.
In Canada, it's called Bill C-63.
Yeah, and it's already enacted now, so it's Act C-16, I believe, rather than Bill. Just make the the bill is before it becomes an act, or before it becomes into law, and then it becomes an act. We've got the issue in the UK, which only a couple of months ago, last year now, the Internet Safety Bill became an act, which the government at the time was using the old excuse, this is to protect children. Some of the argument was valid, but in reality, it was mainly to monitor discourse, just generally irrelevant of if the participants were minors or adults. There was a lot of argument, I think Signal and Meta platforms under their WhatsApp operation even threatened to cease their official office operations in the UK if the government pushed for further so-called entries into their platforms. There's this issue of if you're going to allow backdoor or security openings for governments, then sooner or later these backdoors will be security concerns for other other individuals. So we could these backdoors could raise security issues in relation to hacking, data privacy, and fraud potentially. And I hear all the time about data leaks, and these sort of backdoors could just produce even more data leaks, which raises questions about individual personal data, including addresses, contact information, and credit and debit card information. I don't know. I on my Minds channel, I do report on a few of these, but these days I hear so many sort of scares. They become unless I have an entire Minds channel just related to this subject, it would become extremely tedious, and I would be reporting on stories on potentially a weekly basis. But I've come to the conclusion that whenever governments just talk about this is just to protect children, I question that. I don't know. I don't know. I've got to clear my thoughts on this one. I'd love you to continue to say I've got so many thoughts on this, but I'm got to have to sort of think about how to present them. But yeah, Roger, sorry.
Okay. Well, when you talk about back doors and stuff like that, I remember back whenever these phones first started coming out, and they were bragging about how they were impenetrable, and they swore up and down there were no backdoor entries into these phone systems. I believe it was a few years after that they found out that the phone companies were lying, that they did have backdoors into these phones. They were actually pulling metadata off of people's telephones without them knowing. And for years and years, they kept denying it like it didn't happen, and then come to find out it was true. And I see that happening everywhere, to be honest with you. I think the days of denying the fact that there are backdoors into programs is over. With Telegram, the thing that really stuck with me was right after that arrest was made, my account on Rumble, just the monetization stopped. And I mentioned this in Mine's chat when we were in there talking. I was like, it was weird because it was a matter of days. Monetization just went dead. And there was a couple of people that were mentioning the strange coincidences that was happening during the time that this guy got arrested compared to other platforms like Rumble. You know what I mean? It stops and it makes you think, okay, what was all involved in this anonymous platform? You know what I mean? It just seems odd that it happened that way. And from that point on, and it wasn't very much. I get maybe like 2 cents on it for every video I put on there. It's nothing to really bitch about, you know what I mean? But it does seem odd that it just came to a dead halt for over a month now. I believe it is now. And I was getting at least a solid 5 cents a week, you know what I mean? I know that sounds pathetic, but it's true, I was getting at least that much, and then all of a sudden it stops. And I wonder how much, how many people were doing things they weren't supposed to be doing, hiding behind Telegram, because it seems like everything went dead silent when it comes to Rumble after that, you know what I mean? That was the one thing that really stuck out to me on that. Now, another thing too that you were talking about was like the privacy laws that they're putting into place, and they're hiding behind children. They've been doing that here in the United States with freaking juvenile courts for forever since it came into existence. What they do is they take and they hide behind the privacy laws to freaking prevent the public from freaking hearing about what's going on in these juvenile court systems. Because according to them, they're protecting the children's privacy, and nobody but the people involved in the case can go into court and everything, and you can't read about the information on court dockets or anything like that, and I find that pretty bad because of things that I've learned about it. They hide behind it so that they can get away with doing more than what they're really supposed to be doing. They can keep it quiet and nobody needs to know about it but that particular court system, and they've been doing stuff like that forever. It's not just people hiding from hiding behind these laws that it's the actual court systems and all of the freaking organizations like that too that's involved. So that's about as much as I'm going to go on that. I figured I'd put that much in. It's your turn.
Yeah, just on the point of privacy, and this is a bit of a tangent, really. Back in May, it was Lewis Russman that he didn't actually release that himself, but he reported on the 4 major telecommunication companies, phone companies in the US, collecting and selling users' data, so mainly things like location data, to third-party companies without consumer consent. So just because you agree to certain contracts, terms of service agreements, and so forth, doesn't necessarily mean that these companies, well, depend on the wording of the these contracts. They may be providing this information to third parties without your realization anyway. Yeah, I mean, that was just about a tangent.
Yeah, the whole thing. I didn't know about Rumble. I mean, I am monetized on Rumble, but I'm not making a big amount. I mean, that is going to probably shift at some point, because YouTube is definitely, I mean, the writing's on the wall with YouTube. YouTube is definitely on its way out. I mean, there's people who would.
I personally would argue the opposite. Sure, YouTube is not providing as much money to general creators, but they do have a large sort of corporate sort of backing. They are the largest video content social media company
for now.
Yeah, but it's not going to happen overnight. This is going to take several years.
Yeah, they are the largest There's 2 ways that, and there's 2-way trends die. They either like just collapse overnight, they just basically cave in on themselves, or they die slowly. Yeah, YouTube is the biggest content creator for now. I keep saying that for now, and it's like everybody, and a lot of it is because of the simple and this is something that I've been able to take advantage of. Like, there's content on YouTube that probably needs to get shared on alt platforms, and because of what YouTube, and it happens every time YouTube comes out with more censorious rules. Whenever they do that, the other platforms get that much stronger. I also got to point out that Google, which is the parent company of YouTube, is also getting into financial trouble. In Google in the United States, there's finally becoming some interest in breaking Google up. So Google is eventually going to get broken up. It might take a few years to get there, but it is going to happen.
Technically, we're talking about Alphabet Inc. Alphabet is the overarching company, and Google is under that, and it's a child company, subsidiary company, and then YouTube is controlled by Google. And Google is just not Google, the search engine, but they also there are subsidiaries in relation to things like
they did this with AT&T. They've done this. The U.S. government has done this a few times with corporations that have gotten it. It's like, yeah, it's going to probably happen with Google. It might take a few years to happen, but I mean, there's definitely some movement afoot in DC to break Google up. But anyway, that's for another discussion. Let's move on to the next topic here, which is Oh, look at
Today
that.
we are announcing
Eric
campaign
Adams.
finance, bribery, and conspiracy charges against Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City. As the indictment alleges, Mayor Adams engaged in a long-running conspiracy in which he solicited and knowingly accepted illegal campaign contributions from foreign donors and corporations. As we allege, Mayor Adams took these contributions even though he knew they were illegal, and even though he knew these contributions were attempts by a Turkish government official and Turkish businessmen to buy influence with him. We also allege that the mayor sought and accepted well over $100,000 in luxury travel benefits from some of the same foreign actors who arranged many of the illegal campaign contributions. These benefits included free international business class flights and opulent hotel rooms in foreign cities. The mayor had a duty to disclose these gifts on his annual public disclosure forms so that the public could see who was giving him what. But as we allege, year after year after year, he kept the public in the dark. He told the public he received no gifts, even though he was secretly being showered with them. We allege that Adams accepted these benefits knowing that they were given to him because of his position. And in exchange for some of those improper benefits, he intervened in the New York City Fire Department's inspection process for a building owned and operated by the Turkish government, allowing it to open even though it had not passed the fire inspection. The corruption alleged in the indictment is, as I said, long-running. As we allege in the indictment, Adams' solicitation of illegal campaign contributions began in 2018. After he started raising funds for his 2021 mayoral campaign, he agreed to take contributions offered by multiple Turkish businessmen, several of whom he met in Turkey. Adams knew that these wealthy individuals could not legally donate in a U.S. election. Federal law clearly prohibits foreign donations. That's how we protect our elections from foreign influence. Yet Adams directed his staff to pursue this illegal money to support his campaign for mayor. And as we allege, Adams continued to pursue foreign money in secret well into 2021. And it didn't stop with his first campaign for mayor. As we allege, in 2023, the mayor rekindled these corrupt relationships, seeking more illegal campaign contributions from some of the same foreign sources to support his re-election campaign. Adams also took contributions that broke other laws. As we allege, he sought contributions from businessmen far in excess of what the law allowed. He also allegedly sought contributions from corporations, which are not allowed to contribute at all in New York City elections. Many of those illegal corporate contributions were organized by the same people who organized the illegal foreign contributions. And Adams allegedly disguised them all in the same way by accepting the money through so-called straw donors. A straw donor contributes someone else's money, hiding the money's illegal source, such as a foreign businessman, a corporation, or a wealthy New Yorker who has already contributed the maximum amount allowed. And as we allege, Adams circumvented all of these laws, taking contributions from exactly the sources the law prohibits, all to benefit his mayoral campaigns. Now, Adams also personally benefited from the illegal conduct alleged in the indictment. Adams solicited and accepted over $100,000 in luxury travel benefits for years from wealthy Turkish business people and at least one Turkish government official seeking to gain influence over him.
Okay. I believe he's not the former New York City mayor. I think he might be the current New York City mayor. I'm going to have to find out for sure here. But he was indicted. He was indicted for multiple offenses, bribery, taking. Let me just take a look at here. I'm trying to remember all of them because there was quite a few of them. Let's see here. Bribery, solicitation by a foreign national, wire fraud, bribery. A lot of this had to do with foreign influence. What's really strangely coincidental is, as it so turns out, and keep in mind, Eric Adams was the mayor of New York City during the COVID situation. He was also mayor of New York City during the George Floyd riots, and he did absolutely. done absolutely nothing to improve the law enforcement situation in New York City. He's also partnered up with Alvin Bragg, who was one of the guys that went after Trump. Alvin Bragg is also the same DA that went after that subway vigilante who choked out that Michael Jackson impersonator who was attacking people on a subway train. Although I got to point out that particular case, there's actually 3 or 4 people that restrained that particular person. Eric Adams has got a lot of issues to deal with. And apparently, though, Eric Adams has his limits. And Eric Adams just simply reached the point where he just simply, this is speculation on my part, has reached the point where he just simply cannot get on board with Biden-Harris and what is going on, and has just decided he's not going to play ball anymore. And right after he's decided that he starts to show a little bit of independence, they go after him. And don't know the specific details about the charges entirely. I do know that the foreign influence peddling involved a Turkish individual. But yeah, it is very interesting that the Democrats chose to go after one of their own. He doesn't have to step down because of the indictment. If he is convicted, yeah. There's obviously calls for Eric Adams to step down. The article I'm currently looking at has Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as Sir Roger Hansen knows, an absolute sterling fucking genius of a congresswoman who managed to prevent Amazon from creating jobs in her home district. Yeah, real winner, that one. It looks like what ended up happening is that Eric Adams has just simply decided he can't play ball anymore, and for damn good reason. There is a big capital there's a big capital, like same thing with London to a certain extent. There's a big capital fleeing of New York City, as New York City, like a lot of the blue cities in North America are. Like, there's a big capital flight out to the suburbs, out to the smaller towns, and for damn good reason. Same reason why I'm considering leaving the city, too. Hold on a second. My throat's getting scratchy.
So you'd be drinking coffee instead of that tea.
Yeah. You don't necessarily have to be living in the big city anymore to have access to decent internet. And it's like I said, for someone like me who's actually planning on eventually being able to do podcasting and streaming full time, I don't have to be living in a city to do it. So I don't need to be living in a big metropolitan area anymore. So, I mean, a lot of people are discovering the joys of not moving. A lot of people, if they can get out of the cities, they are. And Eric Adams was the head with both George Floyd and with the COVID situation. And although when you take a look at the crime numbers for New York City, the numbers, like the sheer numbers for New York City, make it look like you think there's a lot of crime going on there. Keep in mind, New York City is a very, very big populous place. Like, it's larger, it's got more people in it than London. So that's going to, you get a lot of crime there because there's a lot of people living there. Its per capita rate isn't as bad as, say, some of the cities in the Sun Belt, for instance, but things have definitely gotten worse. It is a blue city, and while there is a bit of a stubborn independent streak with New Yorkers, Eric Adams decided to show a little bit too much independence from the current far left quasi-communist party known as the Democrats, and they've decided that he has to go. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
I just checked on Eric Adams is the current mayor, assumed office January 2022. I've not taken any notice of this story, so I can't really comment, to be fair. I would have to do more research on what he's been charged with, and yeah, I can't really comment.
Okay, I will correct my statements. He wasn't the mayor during the George Floyd riots. He was definitely mayor for at least part of the COVID situation. Roger, over to you.
Yeah, he was with Floyd. He was in charge of the police department during that time period. So he went from that to becoming the mayor eventually, and like he was always involved with law enforcement. Now, the thing that gets me about that whole situation is like you said, people within his own party is wanting him to step down, and like. I'm not real big on polls or anything like that, statistics and taking surveys and shit. But even their polls, the ones they have, are saying that the dude needs to step down because, and not only him, but like people in his cabinet are walking off the job because of indictments and shit, you know. So this is some serious stuff that's going on there. I am aware of it, but I know very little about it, other than what I've read up on and heard about and things of that nature. But it is a big story. It's something that I think is going to hit big, you know. I do want to stick around for P. Diddy, but I'm probably going to have to get off here after this because I have some issues with my crazy mom. So, with that, I'll say, you know, this has been an excellent show, but I gotta head out. Okay, Naroki.
Yeah, no problem. You know, I could definitely finish up P. Diddy, but I don't know how much Mark knows about.
Very little, to be fair. I've heard sort of clips and stuff, but I've not really taken very much notice.
All I can say is it couldn't have happened to a better guy. I still say he had something to do with Tupac's death. I disagree with Angel on that one 100%. I think P. Diddy had something to do with that, and that's basically all I can say.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it couldn't have happened. Everything that's happening to him, he deserves. He's probably the epitome of rap music.
Okay, yeah, well, we kind of, okay, okay, thanks, Roger. We'll actually get into the topic proper. I'll be doing most of the talking on this one.
Love you, I'll see you later.
All right.
Cool. Okay.
Okay, P. Diddy. All right, well, the thing about P. Diddy is that there's two things that stand out about P. Diddy. Even back in, like, I mean, he was talking about the killing of Tupac Shakur. Again, I can never wrap my head around why people are so obsessed about what musicians say, think, or do. Like, most of the musicians that I have encountered, with the exception of one, are not exactly what we call critical thinkers for the most part. I hate saying that about most musicians, but yeah, they're not the sharpest knives in the drawer. But they give these, and a lot of them turn out to be really degenerate human beings that have images that run contrary to what they were like as a person. Bob Marley, for instance, everybody seems to think he's this big, huge spiritual guru. I mean, he had goons threatening radio DJs in the country that he came from, that if they didn't play his music, that he would kill them. John Denver was probably one of the most massive hypocrites around. I haven't actually spoken to Lady Gaga, but I do know, having worked one of her shows, that they control her so tightly that even when she does say something publicly, I have to question whether it's her doing her talking or whether it's one of her people telling her what to say. And again, I got fairly close, not close as an intimate or be friendly or whatever, but I got physically very close to her at one point. I mean, she's not stupid, but she's not smart either. And, I've encountered that with a lot of musicians. So people give musicians a lot more credit. Well, one of the things I remember specifically about P. Diddy, and I said this on 400, is the fact that, I mean, like, I can remember a radio host in Calgary at one point saying, here's a bunch of songs that P. Diddy didn't steal. So P. Diddy made a lot of tracks, but I mean, he just basically took songs that were already famous and just reworded them and used the same music scores. And so, I mean, he really wasn't that great of a musician. But here's the thing, right? They say good musicians create, great musicians copy. And so he's got a reputation way out of proportion of his actual talent level. Very, very controlling, I mean, again, right? I mean, I'm not into, even though I worked with the union that does the setup and teardown of concert stages in Edmonton for a few years, yeah, one of the most uptight concerts I ever worked was the one with Lady Gaga. Now, I never did anything with P. Diddy, never came up here. But, I mean, I can tell you that one of the things I noticed when I was doing these is that the bigger the name, the more uptight the people were around that person. So I can imagine P. Diddy had a lot of people around him. Now, the charge, like, I mean, it's like he got arrested and it made the news, and then all of a sudden it just disappeared. Like, nobody, with a couple of rare exceptions, nobody in Hollywood, nobody in the music industry, and this is almost like the same as with what happened with Epstein and so forth. They're all going dead silent about him. And there's apparently, much like Epstein, there is a list of attendees of his party that might potentially be slated to be released. Now, is there a list? I don't know. I do know that the particular agency that arrested P. Diddy has a very high percentage success rate when it comes to charging people. That does not necessarily mean that he's guilty, but what's happened is, again, and you won't hear this from the mainstream media, because in particular the Hollywood media has just gone dead quiet, like dead quiet. What you're hearing in the alt media is you're hearing people, like, for instance, certain rappers who really did not particularly like P. Diddy. Kanye West, for instance, has openly accused P. Diddy of being a Fed, and it's like, maybe he was ratting people out because he was in the music industry for a very, very long time, and he definitely benefited when Suge Knight got sent to jail. And Suge Knight was an absolute thug. And again, I don't know too much about Suge Knight because, again, I'm not a big follower of music. There's a lot of people, apparently, though, in Hollywood in particular. Keep in mind, Hollywood is just keeps continuously being racked over with controversy after scandal after controversy after scandal, and it just keeps getting worse for them. And yeah, P Diddy. I mean, one of the things I will point out about P Diddy is that one of his exes, Jennifer Lopez, when P Diddy got arrested, she went out and got herself a lawyer specifically to deal with this problem. So yeah, but there's a lot of people who were involved either directly or indirectly with P Diddy, and of course, like the stuff he got busted with. Like, what are you doing with 1,000 bottles of baby oil and anal lubes and that type of thing? Like, why would you have that much stuff on your property, right? Like, that sort of thing is hard to talk yourself out of, definitely. So it's the mood I'm sensing right now is that everybody is waiting for the other shoe to drop with P Diddy. There's a lot of there is currently a few people who didn't like P Diddy who are running out to stab knives in him. There's a whole lot of extra lawsuits that have come at P Diddy. A lot of that, though, just might be predatory lawsuits and whatever, which is a big thing in North America. Well, specifically in the U.S. it is anyway. So there's a lot of speculation and not a lot of hard facts, but the hard facts that are out there are pretty damning. And it wouldn't there's some speculation that it wouldn't surprise a lot of people if P. Diddy ended up getting Epsteined the same way Epstein got Epsteined. And with that, I'm going to turn it over, although you're not particularly big on culture, and I'm not very big on the music scene either, but yeah, I will let you take this out, and then we'll just end the show.
Okay, as you say, I'm not a overly big love of celebrity sort of, I don't know, I won't call it gossip, but celebrity culture these days. But I will say that even though he has been charged with potentially charged with certain things, he has not been convicted as yet. So again, innocent until proven guilty, which is a important factor in my legal system, in Western legal systems. I don't know. Like I said, I've not really followed the story, and I've got very limited sort of information to go on, so I can't really comment, to be fair.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Not everybody is knowledgeable at everything. I mean, I honestly really didn't give a damn about P. Diddy either, right? I mean, when I went, for instance, I worked for a while in the film business, but I worked in the film business because I wanted to be a director. I really wasn't starstruck at all at any point. So, however, it is a community that I used to walk around in, so I do kind of still keep tabs on it. But I mean, when it comes to music, the only time I really ever thought about music is if I needed a musician to score something for something that I was producing, or some of my favorite music comes from some of the musical scores that have come out of movies. That's just me, right? Not big on the celebrity culture. I mean, if you work in the industry, the performers are just the talent, right? I mean, they're very important. They're the people that actually make the show happen. But, when you're in a position where you're working either backstage on a concert or whether you're working as a production crew on a TV show, these people are coworkers. They're not stars for the most part. And, you know, I just don't view P. Diddy the same way, say, some 16-year-old would. Just because I've been around celebrities before, you know, that doesn't think, you know, I just don't view them that way. But anyway, that is pretty much it for tonight. Unless you have anything more to add, Mark, then we're gonna go. Then we're gonna call it. Thank you very much for showing up. And I am going to get to bed here because I, you know, like I say, I do a 12-hour day. So.
Funny enough, it's coming up to 7:00 a.m. My time, so I do need some sleep myself.
It's midnight here. It's actually 13 minutes to midnight here. So with that, thank you very much, Mark, for showing up. Probably get some